Okay, I have the beautiful Callie with me today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Callie is a clarity and connection coach for women and for men. I'm sure you do men as well. There's no genderfying here. She's an excellent mother, and I met her a couple of years ago up north in the Northern Rivers, whilst I taught her beautiful kids yoga, and we've been friends ever since. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It's such a privilege. I think we even go further back than that.
We do.
Yeah, like I went to school, high school with your sister.
That's right. A long time ago. A long
Yeah,
time
it's
ago.
so nice. And we still, so many of us mothers, when we get together and reminisce, because we have our art class in the same venue where we used to teach yoga. And still to this day, we all talk about those beautiful memories that we have as mums with a young family and being able to come together and practice yoga and breathe and craft and just community. It meant a lot to our little chapter of our lives. So thanks for being a part of that.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. It was a big part of my life as well, teaching every week and
So special.
being so connected with your kids and all the other kids that came. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Mm.
So thanks for coming on the series. So as you know, this is where I interview people and have conversations who are leading with their heart and are following, their inner truth and their inner guidance. And so I thought today that we could really pull apart or even just chat about your journey with trusting yourself, and then further on going to trust your kids, and talking about homeschooling and
Yeah, great.
what you're completing up there. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's such a big one, isn't it? Trusting yourself. I feel like when I hear you speak about it as a journey, it is a journey. It's
Mm.
something that it's like a rite of passage. And I feel like that's the missing piece, perhaps, in our Western world, is the actual ceremony of the rite of passage, of beginning to have that trust in yourself, and then have your elders open their arms and let you go and say, you are capable. I see you as capable, which is such an important piece for me as a mother, is to
Mm.
continually keep reminding myself, no matter where my children are at developmentally, how important it is for me to be the beacon of seeing them as capable to move through whatever it is that they're meeting, and to
Mm.
know that that is their choice to, even though they're children, and, of course, I'm their guide and their parent, still trusting in them that they are capable of meeting where they're at. And I think that's because of my own journey, and really wondering. We had this thing as an actor. I was an actor from the age of 6 to about 27, 28, and professionally for those years, 20-year career by the time I was in my mid-20s. And we had that concept that when you were losing yourself in performance, that you would look out in the audience and you would find your mum. We would call them your mum, and it would be someone that was just so there, watching, an
Mm.
audience member that you felt their energy, just like, oh, I'm on the edge of their seat almost. And that would be the person that you could kind of reconnect to, because you felt like they were there with you, present with you, in the moment with you. So when
Yeah.
we were losing your ground in the performance, you'd ground with your mother energy, and then you'd come back into the play, to the
Yeah.
performance. And so I guess I want to be that. I want to be that for my clients. I want to be that for my kids. But gaining that for myself has definitely been a journey, really backing myself,
Mm.
trusting myself, being in a line of work where there was a lot of rejection. If I couldn't do it, then there'd be another blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in the
Yeah.
waiting room next to do it. And so consistently questioning yourself and refining yourself and practicing to be better, and all of those pieces really can break your spirit and your trust that you have something to contribute and that you matter, and
Mm.
the things you think and feel are okay. Does that make
Yeah.
sense what I'm
Yes,
saying?
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trusting your own inner uh, emotions and feelings around that, because we can be quite resilient, right? We can be like, oh,
Right.
fine, I could do
Adaptable. Yeah.
adaptable. But I think what we have trouble with is actually feeling our deeper emotions, that rejection and holding ourselves in that as well. The real
Yes.
journey too, and trusting ourselves that we can hold ourselves in the pain and in the grief,
Yeah, and knowing that we're okay. I think one of the biggest things for me that I share with my clients and that I'm now holding for myself is actually nothing on our journey gets to be wrong. We don't get to be wrong on the way. We're just learning and giving ourselves the permission to be in the learning journey, which it is to be human. So my own personal journey of trust, I guess what I'm saying in a roundabout way is that it's evolving.
Yeah.
And I definitely can say I have more of an awareness around my capacity and my capabilities because I'm 43 and I have tangible evidence of when I take a risk or when I do things that there's payoff if it's true and from the center of me and in alignment, even if it's a mistake, I still can see that there's leverage there, there's learning there. And so laying off myself in that way and saying there are no negative consequences as such to me making a wrong choice because there's going to be learning there. And that's kind of the foundation for trust.
Yes, definitely. And that's what a lot of people have trouble doing is kind of seeing.
Laying off ourselves, actually. Laying off ourselves, like giving ourselves a break and not thinking, I missed that. I missed that train. I wasted my time. I gave myself to somebody else for that period and lost myself, or motherhood took something from me. All of these concepts that are actually quite socially accepted. When I really would love the framework and the lens to be shifted a little around that and to see that everything is actually in service of your greatest growth, your greatest awareness.
Yeah, beautiful. The journey of trusting yourself. Yeah,
Totally.
gorgeous. And you touched on it a little bit then with having your two beautiful kids. Like I'm sure there have been moments, and they're probably going to keep happening, where you've had to fall back on that trust within yourself.
Daily, actually. It's a daily muscle. I think especially when you're choosing consciously to make choices that feel aligned in the moment, the permission to change my mind has been such a gift. We're being sold a system that's so linear, and we've been sold an institutionalized way of living, which blocks us off into timeframes and says, by this time frame, you should have done this, you should know this, you should look like this, life should look like this. So we're kind of boxed into these systemed ways of living. And if you haven't made it by then, or you're not reading by then, or you're not walking by then there's something wrong with you. There's some problem, there's some block, there's something you're not getting around life. And so that conditioning in parenting has really been something that I've had to lay myself vulnerable to, especially because I'm making choices that feel right now. And I think any choice, this isn't just for homeschooling, unschooling parents. This is for any parent that's making a choice for each individual child in the way they parent, the way they connect, the choices they're making in their relationships. If something isn't working and it doesn't feel like needs are being met in the home, then the one benefit we do have and the privilege that we do have living in the Western world is we have choices. And so being willing to look at those choices, try them on, see how they fit, and then change your mind, I think is key in the trust journey. And it's something that I'm willing to do time and time again, and not fall into someone else's definition of how my life should look, because it's, an aware parent or a conscious parent or an attached parent, or, all these labels that we tend to read books about or buy into, when actually, like this beautiful practice you offered me just before we hit record, of just sort of softening into myself, laying my hands on my thighs and just tuning in and checking in and attuning to my own energy. The subtleties are there of whether it feels right or wrong for you. And that's something that I've really had to rely on. I've just got 2 kids. Some people have 4, 5, 6, and that would expand even more in being able to just connect with the individual and check in. And I think that's been the greatest gift with us homeschooling, is that because we don't have a term stipulated, like I'm not working off the term plan, I'm working off a year plan, and we're just allowing ourselves to kind of, we committed to that, but it doesn't actually feel right now. So how can we adjust? How can we, are we willing to sort of reframe things? And that's been actually, that's been a gift, but it's also something that means you need to be personally responsible and energetically present all the time, rather than handing your education over to a system or over to someone else, where you can actually just kind of funnel that responsibility. That's the challenge, and that's why I think it's consistent for me of checking in with myself. But it's part of the way I wish to live. I wish to live in a way where I'm consistently staying curious, staying open, and asking myself, does this feel good and true and right for me? Does it bring me joy? Does it feel nourishing? And so, you know, that is what I'm offering the home with homeschooling. Is there are times where it just doesn't feel nourishing for anybody. It feels really resistant, really jagged. And so that's when we'll come together as a family and we'll revisit what we've committed to.
Yeah, beautiful. And do you see this type of approach to life in your kids and how they make choices as well?
Such a great question. You know, it's quite remarkable because Bowen's 10 now and Mika is 7. And like the challenge that comes with meeting your own conditioning and doing something that feels different is so rewarded when you begin to see them engaging with each other in a way that is consent driven, that is asking really great, powerful questions, willing to put emotional, like the emotions ahead of the intellect and the knowledge, like asking really incredibly emotionally conscious questions, you know, expressing themselves in ways that I just didn't have that kind of awareness, dialogue, presence to myself. And it can be, on the flip side, it can be really hard because they call you out, you know, they call you out in moments where you just want to be like, just go do the thing. Just listen to me and go do that. Like, I just need you to do that thing. And then they'll be like, but I'm not willing because, you know, and there's like, it can backfire when you're emotionally, you know, I've cited this because where we have a homeschooling co-op, and a lot of what we've been working on is actually building a culture, an emotional present culture within the group before we then opened up into curriculum and learnings. And we work on conflict resolution and ways that they can meet each other, talking about how they're feeling, how much energy they have today, calling themselves out on where their energy's at in certain moments, certain behavior, being able to call circles when they want to talk about certain behaviors. So it's really led in this kind of emotional consciousness way, which just to build kids in that way, that sort of resilience is quite awe-inspiring, because you see the academia and the interest and the inspiration to learn just never stops. It's sort of like 9 p.m. at night and someone gets a creative surge and out come coloring books and you know, writing stories, and because there's no lethargy, there's no learning lethargy.
Yeah, sure. And I imagine they're also doing things that they want to do. They want to learn.
It's self-directed in that way. That's it. So it does definitely take a lot more energy to approach learning in that way. Because you can't just subscribe to a method and then tick the boxes. So there's a lot of questioning. I question, am I offering my children enough? Enough opportunity, enough, you know, the great thing about school, the fabulous thing, especially for those that are wired in this way, is there's a tapas of things that you can touch into and be inspired by, and then expand further if you wish. And you know, funds don't make that available to you when you're not in a school environment, and you really need to, keep offering the kids things to kind of go, is that something that you want to pursue?
Yeah. And you mentioned there's a homeschool co-op that you work with up there in the rivers. So is that something that do you see that group of kids every day, or like what does it look like a week for you?
Yeah. So at the moment it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday where we have the co-op space open. It's at one of the other families. We all purchased a dome, so there's a dome there when the weather's no good. And otherwise it's out in this beautiful nature in Possum Creek, which is in the Northern Rivers. And basically there is sort of a loose way in which the families come together. We're all offering different things depending on what parents have to offer. And we also have a key facilitator who is someone who's there consistently for the kids, sort of like a tutor, who gets to know the kids, gets to know what projects, because it's project-based learning. So it just depends each term what the project is. And I think that's the thing. There's no sort of consistency as such, but there is when it comes to a project. So we've just had a play. They wrote a play, found the costumes, built the stage, did all that. And so they've done that from A to Z. And that was just performed on Wednesday before we take a break. So that was so beautiful to watch them just bring all of their ideas together.
With your acting.
Yes, totally. We did rehearsals and
great.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, wow. So project-based. So is that something that you mentioned that the families might come and they'll be like, oh, I'm really into making this. So I'm really into
carpentry, and one of the dads is a carpenter, or there's singer-songwriter, and so they'll come or there's someone who's got incredible presentation skills, and so they'll come and speak about that, or we pick a project of the term, like we've just done Ayurveda as a science. So we've looked at the science of Ayurveda and the doshas, and so all the kids have talked about what dosha they are and then what foods they would eat if they were out of balance. And that was something that the kids were really excited about, because they're going to be planting a garden, and now they've think that they might actually plant the herbs in what's best for your dosha. So if you're feeling particularly agitated, you can go to the Vata garden and start taking out some herbs. And
gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I want to go to this school. It sounds amazing.
It's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool because the kids, they write at the beginning of the year some things that they would like to cover. And we make sure, of course, because we're registered, that we're putting that alongside the outcomes for the year. But, it's amazing how one particular theme can just flourish out, because now that's taking us into the elements, and we're talking about fire and water and air and
Oh, that's so beautiful.
It's cool.
Going back a little bit, I know that we both went to a private girls' school, secondary college, and this is a bit of a change from what you know and what you brought up in. So how did this come about, and did you research homeschool, or was it just part of something that you became part of a community? How did it begin for you?
Look, I think my whole life I have hugged the edges of curiosity and always asked questions and always wondered, why do we do it that way? Why that way? And when I was at school myself, I had a challenging time. A lot of people that question the system, I guess, are not the ones that really fit in and had an incredible time. I had a challenging time at high school because I was also working as an actor, so I was coming and going from school, so there wasn't an opportunity to really build a strong core group of friends. So there was that socially, but then also I didn't realize until I was in the first year of drama school, and I had an incredible improvisation teacher who pointed out to me that I had a learning style that meant that I needed to communicate what I'd heard to be able to digest it. Hence, I'm a coach, right? I hear what you say, I digest it, and then I communicate it back to you. And through my own voice, and through that learning, that's how I learned. And so a lot of time in class, I would repeat what the teacher had just said, and I'd say it out loud. And they would say, could you leave the classroom? You're again, love the sound of your own voice. You're being the class clown. I just said that, Callie, all of those things. And so I actually thought that I was a pain in the ass. And I didn't realize that what I actually was doing was supporting my way of learning. And so that freedom that I gained in that first year at drama school of understanding that I really needed to go home. In those days, it was like the tape and record what I had heard that day and then listen back to it. And it became this incredible tool that I had. And the reason why I think I became an actor and all of that was because I got to see these conversations and then actually say the conversations that I saw on the page. And so I think realizing that we have so many different learning styles, but also in life, I loved to see things, experience things, and then do them for myself, express them for myself in my own way. And that's not always socially acceptable. It's not always the way to do things. And so I always felt a bit different. I always felt like I was doing things my own way and that I was completely at peace with that. You know, I realized after that experience with the drama teacher that this was actually me. This was the way I see the world, the way I function.
What a blessing.
So such a blessing, such a blessing. And so funny that we're not sort of coming into the education system, learning our learning style, actually going, how do I learn? What keeps me motivated? Am I an audible learner? Am I, you know, like, do I need to see things? There's so many different ways our brains digest information. So I don't like the word rebellious because I don't think I've ever been rebellious. I think I've just been curious. And curious to know how it feels for me in my body. Does that feel aligned? Does that not? No, I'm not willing. I'm willing there. I'm totally willing to try that. I'm not willing to try that. It's very similar with drugs and all that sort of thing in my life. I was like, I'm just not willing to try that. But I'm willing to go down here and, you know, dance the night away completely drug free, which was bizarre in those times. And so then the question was, bring me back to the question so that I can. So doing things differently.
I suppose.
Homeschooling, yes. So the choice, I think it led pregnancy, birth, all of those things just opened my mind up to a whole new world of being separate from the system and realizing that I am empowered to make choices that feel good for me.
Beautiful, yeah.
And so from that journey, I then had Bowen. And I did send Bo to school. We started preschool, but there was this constant like pull for me. Something didn't feel right, but I didn't really know any other way. It was like my first birth with him. I didn't know any other way. It was like I was born at hospital. You get born. That's just what happens. And then I started to this world has opened up to me of like, oh, but there's someone doing this out there and I see someone doing that. I wonder why. And so I would begin to sort of go down the rabbit holes and Bo was very, like I would call him a Velcro baby. He was quite clingy.
Yeah.
And I would always be there emotionally with him. I'd been open to the world of aware parenting. And so I really understood the need to be close to a safe space when you emotionally release. And this idea of just leaving him, which was such a, no, you just leave. No, he'll be fine. And he's like bawling his eyes out. I was like, this just doesn't, you know, and this is of me. Like this child is of me and someone separate from me is saying they know best about this. And it just didn't, it irked me. It didn't feel right. And so I kept close and I stayed there with him a lot of the time at preschool. And then he just said to me one day, you know, Mum, when I'm with you, I feel safe. And it feels kind. And I don't feel safe and it doesn't feel kind at preschool. And I was like, okay, then that's cool. We just don't go anymore. And then come grade 1, all of his friends were going into grade 1 at Steiner School here in Mullumbimby. And so he said he wanted to give it a go. And so the journey started there basically with me realizing that the way we are connected and the secure attachment was not going to be honored even in a school that's supposed to be alternative. It was just not an option for me to stay. I offered to help. Could I bake? Could I do something just so that my presence was there? And it just wasn't an option. So COVID hit and it had kind of been a push and pull for us. He'd go some days, he wouldn't go other days. It was very much just listening and seeing. And I think being in that world was more frustrating for me than actually, because I never knew what were we doing. Was it going to be a negotiation? Was I then going to have to negotiate again and have another talk where the principal comes up to me and says, you can't be here and school started, and like all of this. It was in between worlds. So we just decided after COVID that that would be it, and we would consider we would continue home educating or life learning, I call it. And he's just opened my mind up to so much. He's just the most incredible, the way he sees things and the way he views things has opened me up to feeling more trust actually in myself and in him, that we're going down a path that works for us.
Beautiful. And it sounds like to me that he's able to express that to you as well.
Incredible, articulate young man. And as an example, the third week of him going to grade 1, he was 6, and he came home and he said to me, Mum, when you learn to become a teacher, is blackmail a subject? And I said, I didn't even know he knew what blackmail was like as a concept. So I said, well, what do you mean by blackmail? And he said, if you do this, you'll get that. If you don't do this, then you won't get that. Like punishment and reward. I was like, and this is a 6-year-old with that kind of language. And I then was able to have a beautiful conversation with him about what's expected of teachers, how huge the pressure is with a large class of kids, one person, maybe 2 if they're lucky, so many different needs in the space, and how they're managing that. This is a managing tool that they will use, because they were using marbles, and people who were loud didn't get a marble in the jar. And then at the end of the week, the people that had all the good marbles in the jar got cookies from the tuck shop. That's what he was referring to as,
Right.
And so he just was curious about, what is this and why is it used? And I just, the articulation for me is just, wow.
Amazing.
So whereas Mika, she's not so much articulate. It takes a little more miming and a little more play, lots of play with her. Things will come out in play. But with Bo, he's quite cerebral, which means there's a lot that comes with that, because I think it brings more anxiety and things for him, because maybe he's not developmentally there for some of the concepts that he comes out with.
He's sort of ahead more than he is. Wow, that's so Cool.
But I think they've opened me up to kind of come around, Sarah's. They've opened me up to new ways of being because of who they are.
Gorgeous. And I'm sure that will just continue to grow and expand for you.
As we hit the tweens, I feel it. I feel the eye rolls coming.
Yes. I think beautiful Meeks will have a lovely eye roll, actually.
Yeah, I think she will too. Hopefully a little bit later than Bowen, so I'm not having both eye rolls at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of that, like heading into teenage years, are you looking to continue homeschooling, or is it just kind of a day-by-day thing for you?
It really is a day-by-day thing, because what I'm finding, I'm finding when you create space for an emotional landscape for your children, and it's not just mandated where it's like Monday to Friday we do this, things change, and they change like the seasons. And so I know that if Bo has something in particular, I talk about Bo because Mika's still 7 and I'm not quite sure where her loves are yet, but with Bowen, he has such a love for art and dance and song and very creative, but also quite logistic. I do feel and sense for him that there will be a point where he'll want more in a certain area, and that will mean either some sort of college or TAFE or some sort of learning where he'll be really eager to get his teeth into it. Because he does actually really love learning, and there are times where I can feel his boredom, and I don't think boredom necessarily is a bad thing, because some incredible things arise through some of his boredom. But I do think that it will be a day-by-day thing for us. I couldn't even tell you what we'll be doing next year.
Wow.
And I'm just open. I'm not staunch homeschooler, I'm really open to wherever the journey will take him.
That's beautiful. I was going to ask you something and now it's just gone out of my head.
I think that's the same with my own journey, though. When I think about my own journey with life, I think that when you're open and, I identified so hard with being an actor for those first 20 years of my life, that when I got to a point where I met my husband and he said to me, I was 27, and he said, I thought acting was supposed to be fun. Like, isn't the word play in there? And there's so much stress around preparing for an audition and doing all those things. I was quite highly anxious in the preparation period. And he was so confused because he didn't come from that world. And I remember feeling one day, like, where is the joy? I don't remember being joyful about this anymore. I'm doing it because it's what I identify with. It's what I do it well. I seem to get hired, but where is the joy? And so that was huge for me. And that's actually the pinnacle moment. I started working with a coach when I was living in Vancouver in Canada. And I was working in a yoga studio as a studio manager alongside being an artist. And I had 3 people that were working with me, and we had a staff review where they came in and were talking. And I just felt this lightness in these 3 people. And all of them, I asked them, what's changed for you? I really feel some lightness in your being. And they all said that they'd begun seeing a life coach. And had never heard what a life coach was. It was the early 2000s. And I was like, wow, okay, so who is this life coach? And I went along and saw her for 18 months. And it was a turning point for me in really tending to my joy. Gets me emotional, and remembering who I am outside of what I'm supposed to be. And I think that can be a huge journey in many areas of our lives, with the expectation of who we thought we would be by where we are in our lives. Or it's stepping into the role of mother, or, adopting some sort of identity. And what I'm willing to do is reinvent that. I think I had an incredible mentor say to me once, never live up to your reputation. And I said, wait, what do you mean? Isn't it live up to your reputation? She said, no, because your reputation is created by somebody else.
Yes.
So don't live up to that. Consistently come back to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And so I think we've already answered this question. And the question that I ask everybody is, what does it mean to follow your heart? I think this whole conversation has been about that. But if you wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
When I think about this question, what does it mean to follow my heart? I think it's listening. It means to listen. And to listen with your heart ears, EAR is in heart. It's actually to open your heart ears and be willing to listen to your body, to quieten down your analysis, your judgment, your stories.
Yeah.
And to actually soften into how it feels in your heart when there's a decision to be made, when there's a challenge that you're meeting, when you're living in confusion, lack, all of these stories, being willing to drop down and listen deeper. And I actually think on a global sense, we're really unskillful at deep listening when it comes to conflict, when it comes to communication with one another.
Yeah.
The ability to really drop in, what does it mean to listen, and how deeply can I hear?
Yes. Yeah, beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful intention to have with your day as well, to kind of wake up and be like, all right, listening with my heart today. What does that feel like,
Yeah, and it takes you out of the to-do list and, the tension and responsibility and commitments, and actually just all those things will get done. Here's the brilliant thing about being human is that we can and we will get all the things done, but really being able to do it with deep intention and softness and awareness, that requires the heart.
Yes, definitely. Callie, it's been such an honor to have you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Talking about everything in your journey today and trusting yourself. I think these are beautiful tips for anyone that's listening as well, just about trusting yourself, but also on homeschooling and following your heart and taking the other road, and the road that, not just the other road, but the road that you want to take.
Absolutely.
And jumping into that.
Yeah. Your path. Your path.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't subscribe.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think that's beautiful. So where can people find you, Callie? You said you're a life
Yes.
coach, and a
Yep.
website, anything like that?
Yeah, so the website's calliebrown.com.au, and you can reach out to me there, or you can jump into Instagram. I'm quite active there at Callie Coach. They're the two places, and please reach out. I would love to, if anything's come up in this conversation that you want to kind of embellish on or expand on, I'm more than happy. Conversation is like one of my deepest values, so connected conversation.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
thanks for having me for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. It's always a pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you again when I get
Thanks,
up there.
Sarah. Yes.
Um, and yeah, we'll be in touch. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Mwah. Big
Big
love.
love.
Mm.